How do you make today well lived during pandemic time?
How do I make today well lived? Try not to go crazy. I'm somebody that I like to be active. I like to be mobile. There are days where, I'm out the house at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm back at 10 p.m. and it's literally just me ripping and running throughout the city trying to get my own ideas off the ground or trying to help a friend's ideas get off the ground. But what COVID has taught me and this pandemic has taught me is that
Hello, and welcome to Make Today Well Lived, the podcast. I'm Allie Norman Franks, Beverly Hills High School Wellness Counselor, and I'm the founder of the NormanAid Wellness Center. And we have today with us our awesome peer counselors, and we're so excited to kick off our first ever show. We're going to explore the high school motto and how to make each day well lived, while bringing to light the most relevant topics in today's teen and high school life. Every third Wellness Wednesday, we'll be featuring different themes and guest speakers together with KBEV and our sponsor, Michael J. LeBeau. We're so lucky today to have with us Beverly Hills High School alum, NFL Super Bowl champion, and filmmaker Spencer Paysinger. He's going to share his journey well lived from Norman to producer of the new hit television series All American, which was inspired by his experience here at Beverly Hills High School. Our peer counselors joining us today are Eric and Simone.
So, hi, I'm Eric Idestorsa. I'm a senior at Beverly, and today we're going to be talking about becoming a Norman. So, welcome, Mr. Paysinger. Thank you for being here. Hope you're well.
thank you for having me.
Yeah. Is it cool if I just jump into it?
Yeah, by all means.
Okay. So first off, I just want to ask, how was your transition into Beverly? And were you able to maintain your identity when being here, or did it morph or change along the way?
It's actually a really good question, because I think as a 13, 14-year-old kid, your identity is in the process of being shaped. So the fact that I was sort of thrown into the deep end with going to Beverly Hills was a different culture shock for me. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, where I went to school in the Inglewood School District. So I was mainly around, Black and Latino students. But then once I transitioned over to Beverly, as you guys know, there's so many different cultures within the school. So I think in terms of being that 13, 14-year-old kid and understanding that there were so many more cultures and ethnicities that I obviously was aware of, but hadn't really interacted with, I think it absolutely changed my perspective and my just view on the world and who I was as a person at the time.
Completely. And I mean, it'd be hard not to, but being here, being, like you said, kind of thrown into the deep end with it in a whole different place, what advice would you give to any new student coming here?
Some advice I would give to any new student is, don't shelter yourself away from other people or experiences. I think that's one thing that helped me somewhat assimilate really well into the school was, I didn't look at somebody that didn't look like me as an enemy or as just different or other. I looked at them as different, but from the idea of, I want to learn about you more. And that came from different types of sports that I was introduced to again, going back to the cultures, to just things that other people were interested in that wasn't really prevalent from where, I came from. Yeah. So I think any advice I would give, the main thing would be just like lean into the unknown of the different cultures, the people, and just being in a new area.
That's really cool. I always try to do that myself. And I think it's a fundamental thing in being alive, really. It's just, you just kind of have to go with it and just open yourself up to a whole lot. But from what you said, it sounds like there was still a lot of pressure on you. And I mean, there is for anyone, like you said, 13 to 14, just getting into high school from middle school and all that. But what would you say what pressures exactly were on you, and how did you manage them when things like NormanAid weren't there?
Yeah. I I had a handful of pressures that a lot of people don't know this while watching All American, but I had an older brother that was at Beverly when I was a freshman. He was a senior. And, I was a ball boy at Beverly, a water boy at Beverly since I was like 4 years old. And that's something that we don't really talk about in the show. But, I knew since I was a baby that I was going to go to Beverly Hills High School. Being there on Friday nights, helping the football team and, filling up the water cups and everything. But once I got to the school, that hobby of going to the games on Friday night became just my world. And now I'm there Monday morning, not Friday night. So seeing my older brother being the big guy on campus, the varsity football captain and, Mr. Football, getting scholarships and whatnot, coming in as a scrawny, like 5'6", 160-pound freshman. One of the biggest pressures I remember was trying to live up to him, to live up to my uncle Carter Paysinger and Vonzie Paysinger and even my dad, Donald Paysinger, that went there. I knew at that age, like we had somewhat of a legacy at Beverly already, and I just didn't want to be somebody in the family that broke that chain. And then outside of that, 2002, when I got there, it seems like so long ago now that I say it, it was just a different time. Social media wasn't what it was today. Like social media actually wasn't a thing really. And I knew my friends that I grew up with in Inglewood and South Central, like some of those I would never see them again because we just didn't know where the world was going. But that those 8th grade graduations, I'm saying goodbye to friends that I knew without a doubt I'd probably never see again. Obviously the times have changed and people are able to grow up together and grow old together. But back then it was diving into a whole new world and being the only person from my middle school to go to Beverly was just as hard because a lot of my friends at that time were going to the Inglewoods. They were going to Culver City and Hawthorne and those high schools. But being the only person that I knew going into a whole new arena was interesting to say the least.
Of course, yeah. And that's a lot too, especially for someone so young, for you to bear all that. And and you took it in strides, like looking at your past, at least from my perspective. But I just want to see how you view it. Do you feel like you've achieved your dream of happiness? And I just want to know your perception of your past and the choices you've made.
Yeah, in hindsight, I think going to Beverly was the first best decision I ever made in my life, or my parents ever made for me. I was supposed to go to Crenshaw High School, and I was equally enrolled in Inglewood High School, all at the same time. And, my mom told both those school districts that he is not going to either one of your schools. He's going to Beverly for a good reason. And looking back at it, to be able to be thrown into a situation like that, to where I'm sort of in that melting pot, it allowed me to sort of be comfortable in any room that I walk into. I'm not shying away from having difficult conversations with people that, again, don't look like me or don't come from the same background as me, because since I was 13 years old, I've been immersed in the world, and taking in those different experiences. So it was a great experience. And in terms of my happiness, I never view happiness as a destination. It's always just an ongoing road. There are pit stops, there are nice scenic routes, but at the end of the day, happiness is a journey. It's not a destination.
Cool. I think that's a really good way to look at all of that. Yeah, man, that's really cool. I like how you see things. And I think what you said about the melting pot thing, I think that's another really important just factor to have with like one's character. Because another, like, that helps you open up and it helps you like just accept everyone. I think that's more of what people need to do now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to start off, is there anything you would change or do differently if you could be a high school student now at Beverly?
I've openly said this, that I wish I did dive into some of the things that you guys have been doing, especially with KBEV. I always remember that studio in the school being this sort of like unknown production area that I've actually like never really stepped into. But again, going back to 2002 to 2006, when you were a student athlete, you either played sports or you did something else. Like rarely did those lines ever cross. Nowadays, you're seeing athletes go across the lines to, doing a handful of dope things starting as early as high school, even middle school. But for me, it was an either or era, not an and era, if you know what I mean. So I absolutely would love to have, dove into production at a younger age, because who knows where I would have been 20 years later.
No, yeah, that's really understandable. We're so blessed to have NormanAid and KBEV and all those other great activities at Beverly. It's really a blessing.
Absolutely.
Next, what do you recommend that other students do to advocate for Black Lives Matter and to make fundamental changes in our society?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret what we've all been through, what we've all experienced these past few months. It came at a time when I was, reading a handful of books on social justice just as a hobby. And then obviously the things with George Floyd happened and whatnot, it just kind of all came to a tipping point for me. But it was, for me, the thing that people can do the most is just have conversations with your friends and your family. Oftentimes when last month, 2 months ago, what have you, I would get hit up by a lot of my friends that meant well, that weren't Black, but, wanted to understand how they could help, how they could, empathize with me and Black people in general. And although I appreciated the reach out and the concern and the want to do better, a lot of what I thought, or I still think that they can do, is have conversations with their family and their friends that maybe don't see the world, the same way that they do. I've had friends from all different walks of life all over the country. I've had the privilege of playing with, one of my closest friends in the league still to this day is a guy that grew up in, the other side of the Appalachian Mountains, where he probably went years without seeing like a Black person, just to be honest. And he would hit me up and we'd have these such, great conversations, but I want him to have those conversations with his friends, with his family in his area, to start creating that change, because otherwise they're just tapping into or understanding who we are as a people from what they see on TV. And it's already been proven that, the media doesn't portray us in the most positive light at times. So just have conversations, just talk to your friends, talk to your family, and get to the root of why we feel the way we feel about this country, about this country's history, and why we want our just due.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely having conversations with family, friends, it's really important just to get different perspectives and views. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. How do you make today well lived during pandemic time?
How do I make today well lived? Try not to go crazy. I'm somebody that I like to be active. I like to be mobile. There are days where, I'm out the house at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm back at 10 p.m. and it's literally just me ripping and running throughout the city trying to get my own ideas off the ground or trying to help a friend's ideas get off the ground. But what COVID has taught me and this pandemic has taught me is that, you can slow down a little bit and still be efficient. I feel like a lot of the world is realizing that we kind of fell into this cycle of we have to be busy in order to think that we're getting things done. When really, I think a lot of people are still getting their work done and have probably shaved like 20 work hours off of their week, because they know at the end of the day, if the work needs to be done, they're going to find the most efficient way to get it done. We don't have to be locked into a 12 to 14 hour day to be able to do that. So it's just that. It's just learning how to shed fat from my life. And that's everything from cleaning out the garage to, cleaning out my own closet to just getting things off of my board that have just been stagnant up there. So I think hopefully I'm better coming out of COVID than what I was going in. But yeah, I'm just at the phase where I'm just trying to get rid of anything that isn't doing me justice right now.
No, yeah, very interesting. I think keeping yourself busy is the most important thing now. What do you do to take care of yourself, your mental and physical well-being?
I work out. I try to work out at least 3 to 4 times a week. I'm leaning towards 4 this time. These past couple of weeks, because I actually realized not too long ago that if I go more than 2 days without just working up a sweat in any capacity, I like fall into a weird mental state. It's not that I'm depressed or anything, but I just know my energy is just lower. When my energy is lower in that sense, it's just harder to get to motivate me to do things. So I make it a point that even if I don't want to, a 30-minute bike ride, stationary bike ride, or do some burpees or do a light workout for this workout plan that I'm following. But I know if I just sit on the couch and play with my kids, although that's great and there's a time and place in the day for that, I have to start my day with some form of physical activity. I'm just better to myself and to my family if I'm able to do that.
100%. I think it's important to work out and go on walks, go on runs, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes. I think it really boosts your day and makes you have more motivation and just helps you push through the day. I think it's really important.
Absolutely.
Last but not least, what do you learn at Beverly that helped your future, a vision of hope, and helped you to be where you're at today?
I think what I learned at Beverly was how to structure my work. I think that was something, early on that Beverly taught me. Was we had a very, in hindsight, it wasn't that it was rigorous, our workload, but every class had its own demanding syllabi. I'm not at school anymore, sorry. But it was just understanding how to structure it, how to get it done in the most efficient way, and also how to collaborate. I think taking that, especially with my brother's advice of how he saw college, I've never pulled an all-nighter in my life. I've never stayed up till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning studying because, my older brother taught me, and this is how he learned it at Beverly. He's like, if you just pay attention in class, if you ask a few questions, if you turn in all your homework, you will just know the material a little bit more than you think you do. And when you're studying for those finals, if you're working to get yourself into a position to where going to that final, you have the 78 or the 88 in a class, the final can't technically hurt you if you do terrible on it. But that's because you've been active in that class for those, as somebody that was in quarter system in college for that, 8 to 10 weeks, instead of just trying to learn the class in 2 nights of studying. So I definitely learned that from Beverly of just the rich academic environment that they put us in, that once I got to college and then obviously into the NFL and beyond, I was able to keep some of the same lessons. And to me, it's been proven to work.
Thank you so much, Spencer, for sharing your incredible experience and insight with our students and parents. That concludes our first ever podcast. Please join us next month for our discussion about seeking support. And don't forget to check out our website, normanaid.org. It's the fastest way to access all of our resources, including our podcast recording, counseling services, and wellness programs. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at BHHS NormanAid for daily tips on all things wellness.